Yeah, man. So my name's Jonah. I've been selling on Amazon for a really long time now, going back to like 2010, underage, using my mom's account, which is one of the seller accounts I still use to this day. And on and off, it was always a side hustle sort of deal and was flipping used textbooks, used iPhones, that whole thing. And it wasn't until 2020 when I ended up going all in. Amazon was 100% wholesale. And basically, since 2020, I've been full-time wholesale seller since. So, partnered up with a couple of buddies I grew up with, ended up, doing the whole reselling like everybody else. And then you realize you get cut off, or there's only so much you can do when you're not working direct with brand and when you're authorized partners. So now that's the main focus of our business is just partnering up with brands, partnering up with distributors and even retailers and helping grow on Amazon. And it's one of those things now where I have a number of inbound leads coming to me because you get one win, you get one case study, and from that, you'll get a referral, you'll get more people interested in your services with you. So
Mhm.
that's where I'm at now, very much in operator mode and just fulfilling for the brands that we're working with.
Yeah, so it seems like it has just compounded since, which a lot of people don't understand compounding in general. So it's good that you explain that, especially because, one case study with one brand, all the other brands are going to hop on and be like, hey. So that's definitely a good thing. So, first question is, how did you get started in wholesale and what exactly attracted you to the business model?
So I understood Amazon from me just reselling on the platform for so long, but it was always just, I could only make sales if I was actively sourcing product. And from that, one of my buddies growing up, he had started working with one brand and was really just like a sales rep for them and helping push sales. And from that, he's like, I think I should start a distribution company. And it was very much so like a startup. And where I came in was, hey, let's try some online. Let's see what e-commerce is like. And
Hmm.
so for me, it was like one of the things, and you hear it all the time with wholesale relationships. Like I had the perfect relationship. I already had the experience with Amazon. So my light bulb moment was like, let me be a partner to people like this guy exactly, because you have access to product. Amazon's not your field at all. And I understood, if I could buy product in bulk, that was value. I'm placing an order with right now. I'm giving him $5,000. Like that's what people forget about wholesale. It's like you're gonna find people to work with, you're gonna find distributors to work with because at the end of the day, we're giving them our money and
Hmm.
really means something. So from that, that's I wholesale was the long-term play in my mind. And then ultimately, one day maybe I'll build my own brand and come out with that. But for now, it's other brands growing Amazon.
So did you do OA or anything prior?
Yeah, so definitely the jump for me was COVID era. So before that, that's 2020. I was selling on and off for like 8 to 10 years. My first sale was in 2010, but then I'd sell for a little, I'd take some time off. I had other things going on in my life. Uh, so it was always just this background thing. And in 2020 is when I realized, I had the potential, I had the opportunity. Stores were not buying at all, so every distributor kind of needed help moving product, right? When your
Mm.
retailers stop buying, it's a perfect time to open accounts.
Yeah.
So it's a lot different in 2020 when there's a pandemic going on and I'm trying to give somebody my money. Like that's like times 10, right? Nobody's spending back then. So
Yeah.
that was when I got in with a lot of partners. And from there, it's just been figuring out the replenishing game once you start selling a lot of different ASINs like we are right now. So restocking our catalog and then just expanding our catalog with new brands.
Gotcha. What were some of the biggest challenges you faced while growing your Amazon business? Maybe some people don't typically talk about. I know we go into detail in the wholesale network about it with you guys and the members and whatnot, but how did you also overcome them?
Yeah, so for me, it's something we're still running into and still figuring it out, which is the capital game. So everyone runs into it at some point in their business, whether you're
Yep.
just starting out and you've got $1,000 credit card limit, or you're an eight-figure seller and you're placing six-figure POs. It doesn't matter where you are to break through to that level. That next level really does take an understanding on the finance and credit and leverage and loan, all that side of things,
Hmm.
because went down the line of, oh, we're just going to take Amazon lending. We're going to take a loan and flip it and continue to do that. And it worked for a while, but we ended up seeing like, it's very high interest. You're paying it back quickly. It might not be the best option for our business,
Yeah.
but we did open a lot of doors with the help of Amazon. So for now, it's like reeling it back, figuring out like who are the best partners to work with. But I would honestly just say figuring out the capital game is one of the bigger issues with why people don't make it as an Amazon seller.
Have you switched to recently? I know some of the Amazon loans are actually a bit predatory. I had one last December that I took for 5,000 when I was selling about 10K a month. And so I took the loan and it had to be paid back like instantly if I hit a certain threshold in sales, which I did for Q4. So it was a genius play on their part, but I didn't read the terms and then I paid full interest.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So now what we're doing, I mean, we paid off our last loan. Like our last Amazon loan was it was 1.3 million. And I've already told you the story. Like I talked about it on Twitter and everything, but probably 3 months after taking the loan, our account gets deactivated. And that was like the biggest hurdle we've faced up to this point. So a lot of that was, hey, we got to optimize our business, figure out like where money needs to go because we have bills due right now. Luckily, we got through that and paid off the loan. So now we're kind of just back to no interest credit cards. We have a line of credit, but we're honestly planning like looking for investors, stuff like that, just for a Q4 money. There's so many opportunities out there. It's just money is pricey nowadays.
Oh yeah, 100%. I will say the line of credit is like for Amazon sellers specifically, the line of credit is like the holy grail. But
Yeah, that's like the backup plan if you're ever in a hole.
yeah, 100%. This is an interesting question that I put down. So, how do earlier experiences, either personal or professional, influence your approach to managing and expanding the business today?
So my personal, just you're saying experiences.
Yeah, like life experiences or professional experiences, maybe jobs you worked, the NFL tryout, for example, those types of things.
Right. I was gonna say for me personally, athletics played a big part. So I was always trying to play professional football. That was my goal since I was a kid. And from that, you learn so many skills that end up transitioning well into entrepreneurship, running a business. And for me, that has transitioned well because I was always somebody who would go put in the work. I didn't need a coach barking at me, like regardless, I was going to show up and do the workouts, and that's the
Hmm.
same sort of thing with business that, you're not going to make money from day one. And if you're okay and understand that, but you trust the process and the plan, I always think those people that have the long-term mindset end up winning.
Yeah, it's always got to be a long-term mindset. There's people don't want to admit that there's like no such thing as this like quick money facade unless you get lucky with like crypto or win the lottery. Like it just simply does not exist.
Yeah, and those guys normally blow it fast too, since they didn't earn it.
Exactly. Like there's got to be some struggle involved with real success. But yeah. So next question is the one I discussed in my interview actually yesterday with Be Cool. So I want to ask you this and get your thoughts on this in your perspective since you're such a big seller. What do you think about people who never take money out of the business? Some people say never take money out of the pot, never indulge in things like I bought an expensive watch, a new car, and things recently because I figured out, oh, hey, I can't afford this with my current income. It's less than 50% of my expenses. So, or it's less than 50, my expenses are less than 50% of my current income. But my point is, what do you think about the people who are like, no, you live on absolutely nothing and eat dirt?
Everyone has a different goal with it. So some guys, if they just want quick money, like a lot of people get into Amazon because they see you can flip stuff for profit. It moves really quickly if you get the right SKUs in stock. So I'm not gonna hate on the guy if he's making a little money and pulls out $100 here and there, if that's his goal. But if you're building like for the long term, you should probably reinvest everything for at least, the first 6 months, I'd say.
Hmm.
But after that, and once you have a system set up and you're actually profiting, yeah, 100%, you should be taking owner's withdrawals and paying yourself, because
Yeah,
that's why we're all here. We're all here not to grow the orange bars, we're trying to grow our bank accounts. So take
yeah.
some chips off the table for sure. That's something we didn't do or we did here and there, but honestly, not heavily until the last, I'd say like 2 years. And so, and we've seen that business still growing. We're paying ourselves more. The business can still continue to churn. So I think a lot of guys think they have to reinvest everything when in reality, it's like maybe you should make smarter buys and take some money for yourself and grow at a
Hmm.
slower pace than maybe you're seeing the guy on social media do. Like, just because you see somebody else's charts and how it seems like they're exponentially growing, like don't compare anybody's business to your situation.
Exactly. It's a war against yourself, not necessarily them, because you don't see the other side of what they're dealing with. You don't see that they're eating dirt to get there for so long. And yes, it's going to get you there faster, but that's the trade-off. You're not necessarily living. And we had this discussion yesterday, and like you can only jump off that cliff in I don't know, wherever the mountains are on the beach, the cinematic footage in those movies and stuff. You can only cliff jump and do that for a certain period of time. You get old and stuff. There's a time limit on some of these things. So, at some point you definitely want to live. And with that being said, I do want to ask you, do you regret necessarily not taking money out earlier in your life, looking back at it now?
No, not at all. If anything, it was I would only regret trying to scale too quickly. Like we
Hmm.
were taking on debt very quickly, or
Yeah.
like more than we were even comfortable with, and then something runs into our account getting deactivated and we're so over leveraged that it's like, oh, what the hell are we doing now? So
Yeah.
my only regret would be like sometimes you got to roll your profits over and yes, take them off the table, take debt when necessary. But I think a lot of guys get stuck and like, I just got to keep growing the sales numbers, growing the sales. And because of that, they'll open up loans they don't need. So that's been my only thing, not necessarily waiting to take out profits.
Got it. So, what advice would you give to someone who wants to achieve similar success to you in Amazon wholesale? And how long do you think it will realistically take?
Yeah, so like we talked about earlier, 100% you have to reverse engineer where you want to go and what your goal is, right? So if you're trying to profit $1,000 per month, you're going to have a different mindset and approach than the guy who's trying to profit $10,000 a month or the guy that's trying to profit 100 because there's people in this business model that are doing all the above, So with starting out, don't necessarily think you have to just start and place some big wholesale purchase order. So if you're looking at vendors and you can't find anyone that's in a comfortable price range for you, like maybe just start with arbitrage, start with learning the process and flipping your capital and growing it. Because with some guys, I'll say, hey, you got to spend $2,000 with this supplier. And they're like, oh my God, no, no problem. Here you go. Boom. Other guys, they're like, ooh, I don't know. That's like, should I do it? Should I not? So if that's you, you don't have proof of concept yet, you know?
Yeah,
But with Amazon, the proof of concept is in like, okay, I understand I got this ASIN at this price. Issues it sells through, it's good. And once you see that with wholesale, it is just about scaling with larger orders.
exactly. When you don't have a proof of concept, especially for me in the beginning when I was with Miles as coaching, for example, it was hard for me to make certain buys that were actually tremendously good because I didn't have that proof of concept. And then once the proof of concept reeled in, which it did rather quickly because I was FBMing a lot of Stanleys, the sky was a limit. Like I just saw it. So, yeah, that's a great point.
And then with wholesale, it is just like the one connection, the one relationship you have. It's less about sourcing all these products, than like keeping them in stock and making sure you're spending on the right ASINs and all that, because there is just so much that goes into it.
Hmm. So, one thing I do want to ask you, this is one of the last questions. The average Amazon seller, I looked up a statistic and they're paid around, I think $65,000 a year. Could be wrong, but it's definitely not as high as how much you're making. What separates you from that type of Amazon seller, your average Joe? Let's put it that way. What separates you and your average Joe?
Yeah, I would say relationships, man. Like with wholesale, it has to be relationships because with one vendor, you could have one brand that's profiting you more than that 65,000 per year. And I know it's hard to imagine, but it is. There's many brands out there that will pay you that if you're profiting their company more than that. So
Hmm.
whether you're getting paid as an agency and you have a retainer fee, or you're somebody like us who buys their inventory in bulk, like one supplier can change your life. And so, your first one might not be that home run hitter, but it could be somebody where you learn the process. And then from that distributor, you see they have a brand that you can contact directly and then you lock them down. So for me, it was realizing early in this space that number one, wholesale was here to stay. Like the model, it makes sense. 65% of sales on Amazon are third party sellers. Like they literally need us to help fulfill. And
Yep.
then the second one was like, if you're an authorized seller, you last longer than anyone else. So if you're
Yes.
authorized 100% and you have access green light, you're always going to last longer. So after losing a couple brands and distributors because I wasn't 100% transparent with them, I realized like I need to have that hard conversation. So some people won't have it. And for me now, that's my normal conversation because it's helpful and I can actually provide value to the brand. So I'd say it does come down to relationships and then value. So you have to be a person of value and somebody who knows what they're doing and can 10x a brand if you're going to pitch them that over the phone. If you see somebody and you can add value, fulfilling on that. So I think keeping your promise and fulfilling on it is hard nowadays. So if you can do that, you'll win.
And for that conversation, were you referring to distributors, like basically going up to distributors and saying, "Oh, hey, I'm an Amazon seller."
Not necessarily like coming out straight out and saying that, but ideally like
Is it
with brands, there's a lot of different relationship with distributors and brands. But for me, if I say, hey, I sell online, I sell on Amazon, are you guys cool with it? And they say yeah, then I know that relationship moving forward is transparent. So it might not be a great first intro conversation with most distributors, as we know, but there's a lot of gray area in the scenes, where
yeah,
your
there's
vendor
nuance with it.
probably knows, the buyer like doesn't say anything, neither of them really say anything. But if you're on the same page and everyone's like, yo, let's grow this thing, how big could you take it?
Exactly. And for all of my distributors, not a single one of them don't know I'm an Amazon seller. And you
Yeah.
guys go over the importance in the wholesale network of just being transparent with them and not lying to them and saying, "Hey, I'm a distributor. Hey, I'm XYZ." Just being transparent with them, they already know who else is buying this type of inventory like this.
Yeah,
And
like
these
your
patterns, like it's
local
just
your local retail store is not moving 2,400 units of this one SKU, but distributors, they don't care. That's their model. They're distributing product, So you just got to find the partners who are cool with it and just are what you can scale with.
gotcha. Well, thanks for coming on, Jonah. That'll wrap up the interview. Appreciate the time and thank you for coming. Hopefully, to all of you watching, you learned a little something from the interview. Considering Jonah and his scale, I think everyone could learn something. So thanks again for coming on, bro.